Series. It's David McGillivray here with another edition of Little Did You Know. It's a chat show in which I talk to people I find interesting. I hope you agree. Now, this episode of the series could be something of a challenge, and I'll tell you why. My guest is an actor and an artist. Not so long ago, we met, appropriately enough, at a gallery opening. And I said, I do this chat show on YouTube. Would you consent to be my guest? And she said, oh, I don't know, really. I mean, I've done these things before, and everybody asks the same questions. Well, in all honesty, I'm not surprised, because she is uniquely, I think, an actor who has worked with some of the greatest film directors in Europe, and all in one decade, in the 1970s. I'm talking about Antonioni and Pasolini and Derek Jarman and more besides. In the first half of the show, we're going to talk about her films, and in the second half about her second career as an artist. There's only one way to find out if I can surprise my guest with a question she hasn't been asked before, and that's to say hello to the very wonderful, it's Jenny Runacre.
Hello, how do you do? Hope you're well.
It's lovely to be here in your flat in West London, Jenny.
Yeah.
Have you been here for a few decades?
I've been here for a while, yes, for quite a while. Yeah, I have my kids here, yeah. So I've been here a long while.
So when you first moved here, was everybody in the street you met either Australian or gay?
Well, there were a lot of Australians. No, there were, yeah, there were gay people. Not everybody. No, there were a lot of sort of lovely old artist ladies that lived round here. There was somebody called Elizabeth Greenhill, I remember, and she used to illustrate books, and she's got in leatherwork, and she's got some stuff in the V&A. And there was somebody called Hermione Hammond who lived further down, and she painted pictures that I think are probably worth something now. Yeah, there were a lot of people here, and Michael Herr lived here, who was the author of wrote the script for Full Metal Jacket, and he also wrote the script for Apocalypse Now.
It's since the Second World War, it's been an alternative artistic community.
Yeah, I don't think it is now. But
everything has moved on.
It's all in Shoreditch now and over in East London.
It is. It's in Dalston.
Yeah, well, I love Dalston.
Me too. Jenny, I mentioned that well, you've mentioned it several times. Your first love was art. So, were you an artistic child?
Yes, I was, really, I think. Yes, I was always painting, and I was always writing, and I was always doing something. Yes, I was. And I was always doing amateur dramatics. I was.
Were you drawn to any particular artists at that time?
No, I just liked doing it, really. Yes.
But you decided that you were going to train as an actor, and you went to the typically, I think, an alternative drama school called the Actors Workshop in Notting Hill, not far from here in West London. And they taught, well, you tell me, was it Stanislavski, or was it the American version devised by Lee Strasberg?
Well, it was a combination of the two. I mean, we studied the Stanislavski books. I mean, I've still got some of them up there. And but the guy who ran this workshop, called Robert O'Neill, he had studied at the Actors Workshop in New York. He was American, so it was very, very influenced by that. And yes, that's how we. Yeah, I found it really exciting and nice. And the thing is, you could do it also. It was partly full time, but you could do partly part time. You could sort of fist in. You could work as something other to pay your fees, and you could do it all. So it was a very, very useful place. Yeah.
And while you were there, You got your opportunity. There's terrible trouble outside. I wonder what it is. You got your
Those go on up and down all the time.
you got your opportunity to appear in your first major film. Now, this was called Husbands, and this was directed by a Hollywood actor called John Cassavetes. Again, he was an experimental filmmaker. He'd made a very famous avant-garde film called Shadows. Now, what did John Cassavetes want of you in this film made in London?
Well, I mean, I got the part because there was a guy on my course called Tom Busby. Now, Tom Busby was American and he'd been an actor. He was young and he'd done some acting, but he was doing a refresher course there at an actor's workshop, and he'd also, I think he'd been in the Dirty Dozen or something, and as an extra or something like that. But he did happen to get to know John Cassavetes. I don't know if he was an extra. I think he had a small part, but I think he did get to know John Cassavetes. And when John Cassavetes came over here, Tom worked as a runner, and John was having this really problematic time casting this film. He was looking for 3 girls. I mean, he was very, very sort of definite with what he wanted.
What was that?
Well, they were all different girls, but he had totally clear perspectives of what he wanted for them all, you see. And he was seeing hundreds of girls, and evidently, Tom said he was driving around in taxis, and if he saw a girl walking along, I thought, oh God, she looks like I imagine her.
Oh, yes.
He would jump out and ask them to come and audition. So he said, why don't you go? And I said, well, I can't go, because I was still at drama school. And he said, oh, just go along. He said, anyway, he said, I'll make you an appointment. So he made me an appointment, and I went, and I think it was at Dorchester. And literally it was a queue. You were just sort of queuing in this room, and you went in, and you had to do these improvisations.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned those, Jenny, because would you like to hear what the 23-year-old David McGillivray thought about your film?
Yes.
The ladies who are called upon to speak the improvised dialogue are extremely good.
Oh, that was nice. Thank you, David.
So I was right. It was improvised.
It was improvised.
I thought so. Now, at that time, it was a very exciting period in theatre history because the Fringe theatres were opening, and there were all these alternative spaces, you know, in cellars and in rooms above pubs. You were working in quite a few of them, weren't you?
Oh, yeah, I was in all of them, more or less. I worked with Charles Marowitz at the Open Space. I worked with Ed Berman at the Almost Free. I did some work with Burkoff. I worked at the Soho Poly. It wasn't called that. It was called the Basement. And then I worked. I was at Roundhouse. I did everything.
Is it true that you did a play in a former strip club?
Yes, a play. We filmed it in a former strip club. It was done as a play, first of all, at the King's Head in Islington. It was called Dynamo. It was about strippers. And it was quite controversial. It was lunchtime. It was a lunchtime play.
What's that, sorry?
It was lunchtime theatre.
It was a lunchtime play.
Lunchtime theatre.
We used to have that. We don't have it anymore.
No, it was lunchtime theatre. And it was an extremely hot summer. And it was packed in. It was stifling. And everybody used to say, God, you've got to go down. I heard afterwards, they were saying, you've got to go down to King's Head because they're all prancing around naked in there. We weren't naked, but we were acting the part of strippers. And anyway, from that, it was taken up to Edinburgh, where we played at the Traverse. And then Maggie Pinhorn, who was then became the producer, she got Stephen Dwoskin interested, and he made a film. Stephen
Dwoskin, an experimental filmmaker from America, he shot the film. It's called Dynamo, and he was very interested in wobbly handheld cameras. That's what I remember most about Dynamo, and always zooming in on bodies, mostly female, I have to say. So you took some of your clothes off in the film of Dynamo. Actresses, as opposed to actors at this time, were required to take their clothes off quite a lot, weren't they?
Yes, but actors were taking their clothes off as well.
In Fringe theatre, yes.
In Fringe theatre, yes. And I don't think lady actors were taking their clothes off in mainline films that much, were they?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm afraid they were required to a lot.
Were they? Oh, anyway, whatever. At that time, but in Fringe theatre, the boys usually got naked too.
Oh, I should hope so. Now, we're talking about nudity, and this is where I'm going to pull something out of my bag, Jenny. I hope you're ready for this. I'm going to show it to the camera first.
Is it? Oh my goodness me, it's some hideosity. It's got pajama tops on the back there. What is it? Oh, the Roundhouse. Yes.
You were in Calcutta.
Yes,
now, can we talk about what a sensation this show was?
Yes, well, it was absolutely sensational.
Why?
Well, because it was, mind you, Hair had done it before. Hair had actually taken all their clothes off on stage before Calcutta. But for some reason, Calcutta was sort of more outrageously nudity. And we had this opening line where we came in with white boxers' robes on, and we did this sort of movement and dance with these robes, and then took the robes off and then flung them down on the floor. And we were supposed to confront the audience. We weren't supposed to be titillating the audience. And I don't know, it got a lot of publicity. And all the sketches were written by very well-known people. I mean, Ken Tynan put it on. And the sketches were written by, I think John Lennon wrote a sketch.
He did.
Yeah.
Joe Orton.
Joe Orton wrote one. The only woman to do it was the Irish writer, but they didn't use it.
Edna O'Brien.
Edna O'Brien, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you want to look through, have you seen that program lately, Jenny?
No, I haven't. I don't think I saw it.
While you're looking at that, let me just remind you that what had happened in the 60s was that theatre censorship had been abolished. So all of a sudden, I mean, almost overnight, with in the case of Hair, all these shows with nudity were suddenly opening, and Calcutta was, well, it was the rudest show to open. I mean, some of these sketches were quite explicit, weren't they? Well, Joe Orton's was, I remember that. I was there at the Royalty Theatre, Jenny.
Were you?
Oh, yes. It was a theatre in London's Holborn district. Some familiar names there. Anthony Booth.
Anthony Booth, yeah.
The father of Tony Blair's wife.
Yeah. He was somebody else at the time.
Linda Marlowe, is it?
Linda Marlowe's in there.
Jenny Runacre.
Yeah, I'm still friends with her. Brenda Arno's in there.
Jonathan...
Richard Manette, who went to run the Royal Shakespeare Company in Canada.
Was it fun?
Who? Which?
Calcutta.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Well, yes, it was fun, but there were a lot of tensions backstage.
Oh, why?
Well, I'm not telling you all now. I read it in my book.
It's a long time ago. We're going to come back to your book, Jenny. Calcutta, wonderful. I'm glad I saved that programme. Now, it could be said that there's a link between all the great directors you worked for in cinema, and tell me if this is right. They didn't do much direction, and you were left to your own devices.
Which one was this then?
Oh, what? All of them?
I don't know.
No?
I mean, John Cassavetes was...
Oh, he's different.
Incredibly tightly controlled. But, I mean, it was your improvisations and what you brought to it. But, I mean, he...
what about the Italians?
The Italians... Well, Pasolini's was very, very... The Italians, you see, are very visual. They're totally visual artists. And it's the composite of their film that they're really interested in.
Shall I tell you what I said about Antonioni's The Passenger? It's a blank canvas in an exquisitely ornate frame.
Yes. Well, I've written something similar to that.
Oh.
Sure. Anyway.
Were you at all overawed to be working not only with Antonioni, but Jack Nicholson?
Yes, I know. But they were so very nice and ordinary, down-to-earth sort of people. I mean, they did put you at their ease. But it was very overawing, I have to say. Oh. And it was such a glamorous set, and there was so much money spent on it. And, I hadn't worked in that kind of milieu before.
You were also in Pasolini's Canterbury Tales, and appropriately enough, because it's based on Chaucer, there's a lot of farting and pissing in it, and people are having sex all over the place. It's quite outrageous at the time, but I said this is more genuinely bawdy than a carry-on film.
Yeah, well, it was really. It was. I mean, there weren't really many shenanigans actually on set, I have to say. It was very dedicated. And
It was very professional.
Very, very professional. I mean, there were goings on, but I mean,
Oh,
there were.
you're not going to tell me now, I
I'm not
know.
gonna tell you.
You're keeping it for your book.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was yeah, it was a really exciting experience. I mean, the set and how the care they took. It was shot down near Bath, and they had this little village there, and
Which they built?
no, it was an old village, but they took away every sign, every
Yes.
shop front, and the streets were left sort of looking cobbled, or they'd come out on that. I mean, it was absolutely brilliantly done. You'd walk down them, and you couldn't help but feel in character because it was so authentic.
Authentic,
And
yes.
I had this sort of one frock that I wore all the time because I was a sort of peasant, not a peasant girl, but I was the miller's wife, and it was in this rough cloth that they actually used in those days, which itched and so it never clung to your figure. It sort of was stuck, it was stiff, and
Pasolini cared about detail.
yeah, yes, and it was everything was exactly right. Didn't matter, weren't allowed to wear any makeup. It was, yes, it was extraordinary.
We must move on to a film called Jubilee.
Yeah.
Probably the first punk film in the UK, and you played two parts in it, and I've been reading a lot about it because I've just
Jordan's book.
I brought this book out before.
Yeah.
It's Jordan's autobiography. Have you read it?
Yeah.
I could not put it down, but this is interesting because punk was basically invented in this country by two people, Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood.
Yeah.
Vivienne Westwood hated Jubilee.
Hated it, yeah.
Oh, can I remind people of what she said?
Yeah.
She wrote to the director Derek Jarman a letter, and she said, I thought it the most boring and therefore disgusting film I had ever seen. Do you think that's fair comment, Jenny?
Well, she felt like that. I mean, she did feel like that, and she did these T-shirts with them, saying, I can't remember what she said about Derek, something about quivering gay or something.
I'm afraid so.
Yeah, and then she said something about me, paltry, mediocre actress whose depths of soul is so visible, whose lesser depths are so very visible. So, really, it's awful. But anyway, Derek and I both went and bought all these T-shirts. I've got mine there.
Well, I reviewed it in whatever happened to this, the International Film Guide, and I said if I can manage the book and this phone at the same time, Jubilee is either a load of rubbish or an authentic piece of dada. One is never quite sure.
I think it was authentic Dada.
Ah.
I did really.
Well, this is what I said at the end. If I can find it. The film suggests that Jarman has a talent worth disciplining. Well, there's an understatement. Because subsequently he did quite well for himself.
Yeah, he did brilliantly, and he was I mean, he was a huge talent.
Oh.
He was a huge talent, Derek. I mean, it wasn't just in his filmmaking; it was in his art. And he knew history. He had a degree in history. He had a degree in art. And he's just his intellectual depth. I mean, you could talk about anything.
Oh.
I mean, and he was an iconic figure, and he really did what he wanted to do. I mean, he was the first one to ever come out about being HIV. I mean, everybody else used to say they had pneumonia or something.
Forgotten.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
yes.
Derek didn't, and he was a brilliant person.
Well, many films we haven't had time to mention, but during the next decade you did a lot more work, more conventional work, I have to say, a lot of TV. But then, now, there's a gap in your CV between 1995 and 2008. Why is that, Jenny?
Well, I went to art school. I went back to art school, actually. I mean, I'd always wanted to go to art school. Actually, it's when I grew up, wanted to go to art school. But my mum always said, oh, you don't make money at art, blah, 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 which is comparatively true. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. Anyway, so I finally went to Central St. Martin's, and I did my BA in Conceptual Fine Art Practice, and then I did my master's there.
And that, Jenny, is what we're going to be talking about in part 2 of the show. We're going to take a break now for a trailer for a Peccadillo release, and this one is called Departure. It's about a young boy in the south of France falling in love with the handyman. Have a look at this, and then please join us again in a couple of minutes.
We'll start packing tomorrow, properly.
We live in the house by the river. It's like a holiday house.
Ok, cool, moi c'est Clément.
Elliot.
Where are we going?
I want to show you something. Clément.
Your mother has given up things, and maybe she didn't need to. She's not happy.
What's happening?
It was a project to keep the marriage together.
No.
Some people have sex, we bought houses.
I know all is said and done, and we don't talk and all that. I regret I filled my love with every single song I've sung. We were never meant to win. Just shut up! I even thought to think it, now it's
C'est dans ta tête.
I'll never catch the wind. Raise a glass, my dear, my love. Every time you think of love and the frustration you will hide, and you've been lucky all your life, but you'll never catch the wind.
That's a film called Departure. Got glowing reviews when it came out in 2015, but as is so often the case, nothing more from that director. Andrew Stegall, where are you now? I'm David McGillivray, this is Little Did You Know, and my guest is the very wonderful Jenny Runacre, and we've been talking about your films, Jenny, but as I mentioned right at the top of the show, you have 2 careers, and so now I want to talk about your work as an artist. You decided, to go back to school. Now, what was it like, in effect, going back to school as an adult?
Well, I loved it. I mean, I really, really loved it. I appreciated it more than I would have done when I was younger. I really did.
So do you recommend this to other people?
Oh yes, if you want to. In fact, I'm thinking of doing something else again now. I mean, because I actually quite like studying, and if you want to sort of suddenly broaden your outlook, change your perspective, any point in your life, you just go and do that.
So you went to Central St. Martin's.
Yes.
And basically, what were you studying?
I was studying something called Conceptual Fine Art Practice.
Tell us what it is.
Well, that's Conceptual Fine Art Practice. It's well, first of all, I started doing printmaking. I was doing some painting, then I did printmaking, and then I still got interested in Conceptual Fine Art Practice. It was installation work. It's all,
Now you have done installations yourself subsequently.
Yes, installation work, and you can combine performing arts with it, a lot of it, and actually there's also a lot of theory, which I also liked, and
History of art.
not so much history of art, but we studied Deleuze and Guattari, the sort of psychoanalysis. There's a lot of psychoanalysis and sort of reading that sort of thing, and then trying to. Everything had to have. When I was there in the 90s, everything at art school had to have a meaning.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't just do it. It had to have a meaning, and you had to be trying to say something. So you were always trying to think of what you could do as either as a performer or an installation that would be meaningful. And I quite liked that. I mean, I found it hard, but I quite liked that. So it wasn't really decorative at all, what everything I did at that time. But it was also very ephemeral.
I go now to the St. Martin's graduation show. You may be surprised to hear, well, no, you may not, you may have been back yourself, but there is now no painting at St. Martin's.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not surprised, no, because painting wasn't encouraged when I was there.
Even then?
No, it wasn't encouraged when I was there. I mean, I got my MA in 2000, and it was all, no painting at all.
While you were there, were there any others like yourself who went on to become famous artists?
No, I can't think they've been famous artists, but they're all working. A lot of them work at places like the Tate, Modern. That a lot of them somehow got into. They're in the field of art, but I can't think of any of them that have done famous as artists. But I mean, I do go to their exhibitions and things like that, so they're still working.
It is possible to make money out of art.
Yes. Oh, it is.
Please,
because
I'm pleased to hear it.
Yeah, it's possible to make money out of it, but especially in London, because London is one of the creative centres of the world. And even if you're not doing the actual physical manifestation of art, you so much you can do within the art-related industry that it is possible to make money out of it.
Are you now a lecturer?
I have lectured. I lectured for years. I taught for years. I taught performing arts at a college for years. Now I do lectures. Yeah, I do. I do loads of lectures to different places.
Is there a lot of talent in London?
Oh, yes, there's always been a lot of talent in London.
There's a lot of up-and-coming artists. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Installations. Well, let's have a brief word about them, because I've had a look at a couple. Now, first of all, let me talk about a monologue you did called At Least I've Got My Visual Stimulus.
Oh, yes, that one.
Now, I had a look, and I thought I was being very clever, and I thought, this is like Samuel Beckett. But then I went online, and somebody else had already said that. So
it's influenced by someone. I always loved Samuel Beckett. It was influenced by him.
Why do you like Samuel Beckett?
I loved his. I just like him. I like his isolation. You know, that feeling of isolation you always get with him. I like the way every line he says you've got to think about, and yes.
Well, I think you can be spoken about in the same breath as Samuel Beckett. How about that?
Well, not really. That installation piece I did, I remember it was for one of the final degree shows, and I couldn't think of anything. I've been working on feminism, and then I started working on masculinity. I did a lot of work on masculinity and how I felt they were now hysterical because of the rise of feminism. This is back in before 2000, so it was quite ahead for some of the stuff.
Yes.
Anyway, so and then I had to do something that was like a performance-related installation, and well, you know, it was computers are like totally everywhere now, but even then they were at most places, and everything had to be done on a computer. And I just had this idea of struggling to write about the control of bureaucracy and how everything is worse now. Mm-hmm. Everything, you're so controlled, you control. So I did this, and the influence from Beckett was I sat with this black plastic bag. And
you did.
I tied it up around my neck, and I tied a scarf around my head. I did every kind of sensory deprivation I could think of. And then I just sort of sat there with this moving head in the bed saying about, I wrote the lines myself, but I can't remember them all now. Something like, well, I always told them that. And I took, what I also did, I took a lot of old slogans that I'd heard my grandmother and things like, you should be grateful for what you've got, and you've got, and well, I think it said, like, I said, you should be grateful for what you've got. Yes, you should be grateful for what you've got. And then I did some, it'll be better tomorrow. Yes. Anyway, that's the kind of thing I did. And it built up the end with this crescendo where I just screamed my head off.
I saw another of your installations. It's called Bring Your Own Barbie, Jenny. And in this one, you deconstruct a shop window dummy. Now, that and some of your other work, I have found sinister. Can you relate to that?
Well, I have often been cast in sinister parts, so it must have been the same thing that you were sort of picking up. But I didn't go in any way out to make any of my installation work sinister, I don't think.
It's very strange to see just one part of a mannequin just standing there, one leg.
Yeah. Well, yes. But that was, I made a little film of that. It was called Bring Your Own Barbie. And that was to sort of, I was bringing your own Barbie, being like, bring your girlfriend who's your Barbie. And I sort of deconstructed that and then built it up again. And I made this film because I had modeled for window dummies, one of those window dummies with the Ed L. Rothstein dummies.
No.
And
There were shop window dummies that are in fact you.
Yeah, me, yeah. So I worked on that, you see. So that's when I was taking it apart. I was taking myself apart.
It's all coming clearer.
Yeah, and then when I put her in the cupboard, I don't put her in the cupboard. I finally get her out the cupboard, make her into the proper Barbie and dress her all up. And I get in the cupboard myself. So you can make of that what you will.
You can see it. It's online. I want to talk to you enormously, Jenny, about the Alternative Miss World contest. Well, first of all, how many contests have you taken part in?
Well, I've always been involved because I've known Andrew for years.
This is Andrew Logan, who
yes. And I've
runs
always
them.
been involved in the Miss World in some capacity or other. But I think I did about 4 contests. I did one, the second one or third one, Clapham Common, which was the best one.
This is the one I want to talk to you about because this was filmed. It was done in a tent on Clapham Common in 1978. And there is a film of it. The commentary is improvised by the likes of Molly Parkin, and the contestants are interviewed by none other than Divine, who asks the most ridiculously banal questions. And I've reviewed this for Radio Times, and I said it's an absolute hoot. It is. When I first saw it at the Odeon, Westbourne Grove, not far from this flat, I had tears rolling down my face. It was so funny.
Well, it was even funnier in real life.
I bet.
It was even funnier in real life because it's on this great tent in Clapham Common and it poured with rain. Really? It was that night that the rain came down in buckets. Mm-hmm. And everybody was slipping and sliding in the mud. And there were these portaloos outside that were totally overflowing.
No.
And people were sliding in that, and sliding in the mud. And everybody was inside the tent, which was packed. And everybody was drinking, taking everything you could possibly find to take. So everybody in the world was out of it. But backstage it was even more hilarious and more. And Andrew built this absolutely outrageous sort of stair that you had to come down. So you came out on the top. It was also like improvised. It wasn't. They sort of made it all themselves. And you had this direct stair that you came down. Direct stair. It was almost like a ladder, but it was slightly sloping. And of course, people were getting so out of it backstage, they couldn't get down these stairs. So they were either
I'm
stuck.
sure it wasn't safe either, was it?
It wasn't safe. And then they had a donkey on stage, and the donkey fell off the stage. That caused a lot of controversy. The donkey was fine.
What a relief.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Can you remember what Divine asked you?
He said, I went as slightly misanthropic. And what did he ask me? I don't. Oh, it was always like, what do you have for breakfast? It was very banal. They used to say, what do you have for breakfast? And I said, Brillo pads. And then he said, what's your favourite outfit? I didn't, and I can't remember what I said first. But anyway, there was nothing profound about any of it.
But it is such fun.
Yeah.
Andrew Logan's alternative Miss World was filmed again for something called The British Guide to Showing Off. That's quite recent, but I saw it in 2014, but it's about Andrew planning his 2009 show. Yeah. Do you think you'll ever appear in the alternative Miss World contest again?
Well, he's having another one. He's having another one in 2022.
Yes.
So I shall be involved in it. I'll go in. I mean, sometimes I won't go in for the competitions, but I mean, I've always done either read a poem on the stage or done something. I mean, I read a couple of poems last time, I think, and did. Yeah, so I shall probably do something like that.
Good. Have you ever won?
I won one in 1986. And I know what I did do. I did a very good radio broadcast for
It'll come to you.
Yeah. No, I've done several. I did on FM, but I did the one Resonance, and of Andrew Logan as well, backstage and front stage and all around. Yeah, that was what I did last time.
Resonance is still going. It's a community radio station. I'm going to bring up a film, Jenny, that I bet you've never been asked a question about.
What?
Son of Dracula.
Oh, I've been asked a question about that.
Oh, all right then.
Yeah, with Ringo Starr.
Correct.
Yes. No, but people talk about it all the time simply because it was such an outrageous flop. And it was directed by Freddie Francis.
It was, yes, great horror director. Yes. Let me tell you about this. It was made in 1973. It was never shown in this country, and I wanted to see it so badly. And in 2015, I realised it's on YouTube.
Yeah, but
you can see it now. Anyway, this is what I said. A monumental cock-up conceived by rock musicians with more money than sense.
Well, it was something like that, I think. Yeah, it was. But it was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Oh,
I mean,
good.
It had Harry Nilsson in it.
Yes.
And he wrote a wonderful theme tune. That was the most successful thing about it. It was a theme tune of it. And Ringo Starr was there, and Patty Boyd was on set, and George Harrison came on set, and all sorts of numbers were going on. And you can read it in my book.
It's in the book.
Anyway, so it was fun.
Have you ever seen it?
No, I mean, I don't think anything left of me in it, hardly at all. I mean, a nice part. I was Merlin. I was Ringo Starr's assistant.
Yes, you are in it.
But anyway, I've never seen it.
Do you want to see it?
Yes, I wouldn't mind. Yes, I go and look at it on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but there were great gaps in it, definitely, because Freddie Francis is a fabulous director.
But it made no sense.
Made no sense. There were huge gaps in it. Made no sense. It was well, anyway.
Well, have you heard this rumour? It wasn't getting released, and so Ringo said to his friend Graham Chapman, the late Graham Chapman, a former Monty Python, why don't you re-record the soundtrack with a completely different script? It was similar to something Woody Allen had done in a film called What's Up, Tiger Lily. And Graham Chapman was considering this. He never did it.
Oh.
But I'd love to have seen that version.
It would have been lovely, wouldn't it? Or maybe they thought it was just too awful. They couldn't even redeem it with a good script.
Not worth it, apparently. But, I mean, it's another one you've got to see, I'm telling you. You've directed as well, and
a lot of directions.
This is a film I haven't seen. It's called Frozen, and I'm guessing it's nothing to do with Walt Disney.
No. I didn't direct Frozen. It was a play. I directed. I didn't direct Frozen, the film. I directed the play.
Tell me more. In Edinburgh?
In Edinburgh Festival, and it was nothing to do with the Frozen. That's big time. And
not a surprise.
Very successful. It was quite fun.
Yes. Would you like to do more directing?
Yes. I mean, I do sometimes get asked to do some things if it's something I really like. Yeah, I do it. Yeah, but I mean, yes.
Good. I'm pleased. You've been talking this year about lockdown and what you thought was going to happen, and some of it was very prescient. How has lockdown been for you?
Well, I quite enjoyed lockdown, actually. I enjoyed the first lockdown because I sat and wrote my book. I've been writing my book for ages, not before that, but I really made a real effort and finished it all. And I got quite a lot of work. I did a little home video for Vodafone, which they wanted, and I did, and I did a big job for Gucci in the middle of lockdown. They flew me out. I was muffled like a spaceman, so I went out to see them, and then I went out again the next time, and then I did this very interesting work. It was a fashion shoot, but it was done by Gus Van Sant, who's a very well-known film director.
You've worked with him as well.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
So and that was so exciting. It was he filmed extracts of mostly old Hitchcock films.
He's obsessed by Hitchcock. Yes.
Yeah, and my extract, they were each about half an hour, was Rear Window. And so you're doing this whole thing, and it was set in Italy in a Roman tenement, and the scripts weren't exactly the same, but it had so many influences. He did the Antonioni sort of shot, 280 degrees round like that, everything I could see, and of what I was working on. And so you're doing these scenes, and I was playing this sort of lady, irate Italian lady downstairs who's cleaning up all the time and shouting up this band at the top who was Harry Styles, telling them to keep quiet, stop disturbing my piece, and I'm doing this, rushing with this brush, and you're dressed in these fabulous Gucci outfits.
Oh,
it was so clever. So you're in this beautiful Gucci suit, and you're in something else, and they were all dressed this one. It was lovely.
Jenny, I want to see this. Is it possible?
It's online, yeah. Gucci got it, on their Instagram all the time.
What shall we type in?
I'm not sure.
Gus Van Sant,
Gucci. Gucci. And you could do My Little Bit, yeah.
Oh.
And Jenny Runacre.
How wonderful.
It was lovely. That was the most fabulous experience. That was in lockdown. So
you're very lucky. You're very lucky.
Very lucky.
And what does... let's not talk about the book again now, because I'm going to talk about this on Patreon. If you're a subscriber, you can join us now. You'll find us waiting for you. If you're not a subscriber, here's the link that will enable you to become one of us. So we're going to talk about that on Patreon and lots more besides. But right now, Jenny, what have you got coming up in 2022?
2022. Well, I've got stuff coming out. I mean, I've got this Sandman, the Audible book, great series. I'm in that. That's coming out on Audible books.
Tell us more.
Sandman.
Sandman.
Yeah, Sandman. It's well, just listen to it and you'll see.
Fine.
And what else have I got? I'm busy. Yeah, I've got lots more lectures. I've got
Where do you lecture?
Well, I've done universities. I know Leicester University, De Montfort University, Leicester.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I've done. Then NFT. I've done all over the place. Yeah. And
what would we learn if we came to a Jenny Runacre lecture about life?
Well, it's not usually about life. They usually ask me to talk about a film or a film director. Mm-hmm. I could talk about life as well. But
I bet you've had a grand life, Jenny.
Yeah, very nice life.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
You are lucky. Didn't think I'd ask this, but do you have any regrets?
No, I don't think you should regret. I mean, I really think that life is a series of challenges. I mean, everybody says this, but I think it is, and I think whatever comes up is somehow meant to come up, and it's how you deal with it gives the relevance to it, and so that's how it is. So whatever you get, you have to deal with as best you can.
I tend to agree. Jenny, it's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, And would you stick around so that we can talk a little bit more for Patreon subscribers?
Yes.
Oh, that's what
Pleasure.
I like to hear. Join me again next week, if you would, when my guest will be Martin Green. Now, he's been an international DJ since the 90s, and he's produced several LPs of obscure tracks, and some of them are Soho related. Now, this is an area of London well known for its bohemianism. And Jenny, you were in a film about Soho, weren't you?
Yes, I did that recently. It was with a Polish director called Arrow Coral. And it was about, it's called the Battle of Soho, Battle for Soho. So it's about the gentrification of Soho. I mean, Soho has been such a fabulous area. I mean, for centuries, not just recently.
Oh, yes.
For theatre and the vice stands, they were all there. Everything was there. And then it was when this explosion happened after the 60s, or when the censorship was erased here, everything went into Soho. So all the theatres were there. Everything, all the young Americans that came across and brought all these new ideas, it all came and all worked down in Soho. So it was a thriving place. Anyway, it's been changed.
We're going to talk about the Battle of Soho on Patreon and lots more besides. Please join us there and join me again next week for Martin Green. Until then, from me, David McGee, and my special guest, Jenny Runacre, it's...
Bye.
Bye.